you, Nathan.
Well, you should fix them. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, really?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Alex. We can hear you. We'll be starting in a few
I can
minutes.
hear you.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, everybody, thank you for being here today. We'll get the meeting started. This is a hybrid meeting of the City Council. Member of the public can view this meeting live on Channel 8 and the city's website and YouTube. Live Spanish translation services are being provided for tonight's council meeting by telephone. Please dial 720-386-9023 and use code 104091*. The city clerk has hosted a Zoom meeting and speakers will be able to unmute themselves when recognized. I will call the study session to order. First up is presentation 26-416 ACT Program Community Garden Final Delivery Presentation. I'll invite Milo Hay, political analysis analyst, forward to make the presentation. Thank you.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Milo Hay. I'm a policy analyst with the City Manager's Office. We're here tonight to present, I guess you could say, review and present the final deliverables for the Commerce City Community Gardens. So the community gardens pretty much come from the ACT program, which was funded by the city's ARPA allocation, and the community gardens, cover two of the areas: environment as well as food equity. This project, it will pretty much deliver, the site selection process as well as two new community gardens, one in the north at Bison Ridge Recreation Center and one in the south at Freedom Park. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce our consultant here, Jenna, and she will pretty much present this. She has done all the work on the designs and has collaborated with the staff here. So here you go, Jenna.
Yeah, so my name's Jenna Biondolillo. I'm a landscape architect with SCJ Alliance, the consultant group helping the city on the project. I'm the project manager and the lead designer for the community garden project. So some of this background information Milo already went over, so I won't spend too much time on it, but yes, this received ARPA funding and is part of the ACT program, specifically the environmental section of the ACT program. A brief overview of the project schedule, just to give you some background. SCJ Alliance was hired at the end of 2024 through a public RFP process. We kicked off the project at that time and then jumped into the site selection process. We also went through a public engagement process, including 2 rounds of public meetings, 4 meetings total. And then after site selection and public input, we jumped into the design process. We are almost complete with the construction documents, which you all should have received a couple weeks ago. And the plan will be to take the Freedom Park plans to 100% CDs and grading permit, which we just got the final comments on our grading permit, just some final cleanup things on that. And then the Bison Ridge site will go to 90% CDs with the intent of that being kind of a future phase for construction. But all that will be complete, all that cleanup stuff will be complete by the end of August. So as I mentioned, kind of the process started with site selection. So we looked for a site in the north half of Commerce City and in the south half of Commerce City for these community gardens with 2 gardens total. The site selection process was kind of, a whole process, which there's more detail in the final report that was included in your materials. So I won't go into super detail of that, but we started the process with some GIS mapping with a focus on choosing sites that were accessible to the greatest amount of people. So looking at walkability, proximity to residential communities, proximity to public transit and trail access points, and then proximity to complementary uses such as community centers and rec centers. And so we were looking at, every city-owned parcel, school district-owned parcel, and water and sanitation district-owned parcel, so that was quite a lot. So this initial mapping really narrowed it down for us. And we ended up with 7 sites that we did site visits at. And during those site visits, we scored each site based on our in-person observations, looking at things like available space, slope, sun exposure, proximity to amenities such as parking and restrooms, and then whether there was existing irrigation and water on site. And then we went through that same process for 6 sites in South Commerce City. After our site visits, we had 4 finalist sites in North Commerce City, Turnberry Park, Frontera Park, Villages East Park, and Bison Ridge Rec Center. We presented these 4 options to the public during our first round of meetings. And after public input, the top voted sites were Bison Ridge Rec Center and Frontera Park. After discussions with city staff, we ultimately selected Bison Ridge Rec Center because Frontera Park is already pretty programmed and there's limited space. And then having it at the rec center is a great opportunity for recreation staff to host programming and events at the community garden. Also, the community garden, while not central within North Commerce City, it is a place that a lot of different people from different areas go to, whereas these other parks felt more like neighborhood parks. And then our 3 finalist sites in South Commerce City were the Lester Arnold High School, the SWAP Hope Center, which is also a Adams 14 School District facility, and then Freedom Park. We presented these 3 to a public meeting hosted at Eagle Point Rec Center for community members in the South. Their top voted site was the SWAP Hope Center. And the city did meet with the school district to discuss options for having a community garden on one of their properties. And after some coordination, the city decided to move forward with Freedom Park instead, just because while the school district was interested in collaborating on a community garden, the Freedom Park is just a much more straightforward process because it's already owned by the city. It has its irrigation, which is owned by the city. So given the quick timeline with the funding, we chose to move forward with Freedom Park to ensure that we got a community garden designed for South Commerce City. But there's still the opportunity to collaborate with the school district in the future. So I'll just give a brief overview of the design for each site, kind of looking just at the concept plans, but you all received the draft construction documents a couple weeks ago, and I have those available too if there's any specific questions on those more detailed designs. But starting with the Bison Ridge Rec Center, we chose to locate the site at this southwest corner of the property. The east side of the property is also open. However, the city has plans to develop a park in the future, as well as potentially more detention. So this area at the southwest was the most available location, and it's relatively flat and unused, so it was a good spot. And then this is the concept plan that was presented to the public in a second round of meetings to get feedback on this initial design. So we presented this at a public meeting. We also presented to city staff and the city's internal stakeholder group and got their input. That input was then incorporated into the final drawing. So this isn't, the final design, but it's close, and it gives you an idea of what's included in the gardens. So a couple things to note. We did include a separate parking lot specifically for garden users, just because we heard from recreation staff that this parking lot gets quite full during busy periods. So they did not want to take up existing parking for the community gardens. And then within the garden, this part on the left, kind of that brown shaded area, would be individual garden beds for rent by community members. And then the area on the right is more the programmed area for city rec staff to either program or a community group, but it includes in-ground garden beds, an outdoor classroom, and then we've also added, based on community input, a area for children. So a sandbox, some child-sized site furnishings, and gardening tools, just because while at Freedom Park there is an existing playground, there's not that amenity here, so it felt necessary if people are coming as a family, parents can garden while the kids have something to do. Other things to note, the concrete area, which is kind of the white areas where the shed is, that's all ADA accessible, and then the garden beds lining the concrete area are wheelchair accessible garden beds. Some other amenities include site furnishings, including tables and benches, a shed and shade pergola, yard hydrants with hose attachments for watering the garden beds, and another cool feature is we added, and this was from community input, a garden community share box on the outside of the fenced area. So if people have excess veggies that they're not going to use, they can put them in that share box and have that available and open to anyone in the public who wants to come. And then there's also, from community input, we've included some fruit trees within the garden. So the garden area would be fenced in with secured gates that garden members and then city staff would have access to. And then potentially there could be days in the summer, say a Saturday in the summer, where it's open garden day and the gates are open and there's someone, a volunteer or a city staff member there to monitor that. So moving on to Freedom Park, this is at an existing park. Some of the existing amenities within the park are the playground, the pavilion area, and then there's an open lawn. We didn't want to disturb those existing features and wanted to keep the visual and spatial relationship between those three things. So that's why we located the garden on this east edge. That has the added benefit of being close to street parking on Olive Street. This garden is, just based on the available space, is much smaller than the Bison Ridge one, but we tried to include many of the same amenities aside from the kids area because it's right next to this existing playground. A few things to note, the little picnic shelter on the north end there is actually existing, and we've included it within the fenced-in garden, but you'll see in the construction documents that we've noted a potential location for a new picnic shelter outside the garden fence if park staff feels that that's necessary. Also, based on some input, we did add an ADA parking space within the street parking on Olive Street near the entrance to the garden, as well as a ADA accessible curb ramp there. And just like at, oh, here, sorry, I should go to the more detailed plan. Just like at Bison Ridge, the concrete areas are all ADA accessible, and we've included wheelchair accessible garden beds along the concrete. There's also a garden shed, shade pergola, compost boxes, garden share box outside of the fenced-in area. And then one thing that we included here that's not at Bison Ridge is a free little library. And the reason we didn't include that at Bison Ridge is because I think there is one at the rec center already at Bison Ridge. So this is just a few of the images that we also presented to the public, along with the concept plans. A couple things to note: the ADA garden beds, we ended up going with more of a plastic prefab option, just to ensure that they're truly wheelchair accessible, and it was a little bit more cost effective. And then instead of a hand pump, we went with a yard hydrant that has hose connection so that people can water their individual beds. It would be connected to the irrigation system, but on a separate zone that can be set to only be on during times when the garden is open, so that it can't get left on overnight or anything like that. And then the top right here is an example of that produce share box. However, our design, we did something a little more robust, made of metal. Since this will be outside of the secured fenced-in area, we wanted it to be a little bit more durable. And then also examples of the outdoor classroom at the bottom right, and a pollinator garden at the top left, which we included on the outside of the fenced-in area at Bison Ridge. So that's all I have. Thank you all for letting me present on this, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jenna. Councilmember Kim.
Great presentation overall. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity and time to actually get this done. I guess my question would be more so for the city perspective. What are we looking at as far as estimate for sustainability if this gets executed?
That's a great question. I think when I think of sustainability with response to a project of this nature, it kind of gets into the O&M. I think where we're fundamentally at, given the design and what we understand are the all-in cost, I think that's more of the threshold conversation about before getting into the O&M. Where we currently stand is, now that what design is done, we have to identify the funding sources necessary to be able to get into the initial phase of construction, so stage one. All in is somewhere around a couple $100,000. Our goal is, now that we have a clear picture as it pertains to what the community has weighed in on and what we've been able to design with our fabulous consultant, is what avenues exist through, whether it is the state or the county, to help us bring this to light. And if we're unsuccessful in that, it's then re-engaging with our city council, which at that time, we just wouldn't want to see the initial cost of construction, but then what is that initial year of ongoing maintenance and operations. And in that, I would say we would have to then reassess what that then looks like, depending upon the longevity of how we'd want this community garden to sustain over the course of the near future. So I think that's the first stage before I can really answer the sustainability,
Right.
is what that will look like on an annual basis. But right now, 200,000 plus that first year of O&M based off of what would be required from a.
And you're saying approximate to 300K maybe for all in for both, or for one?
I believe it's for both. I'd have to go back. I don't have the exact numbers, but our consultant may be able.
Yeah, it's
So the 200,000 is going to be for the Freedom Park site. Bison Ridge is still under review internally. That is going to be a more substantial cost.
Okay, so Freedom Park only for
Yes, sir.
about 200K, approximate, for identifying funding sources for the initial execution of the actual build out for it before identifying what that sustainability cost would be at the end of the day and where that money is coming from.
Correct.
Got it. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Goriola.
Thank you, Mayor. When we're looking at the fencing, what type of fencing have you guys looked at? Just because, again, in other projects before, like fencing is a big piece of the landscape and how it looks, right? Is it welcoming, not welcoming? Could you talk about that? What options did you guys look at?
Yeah, we wanted something that was, longevity and, low maintenance. So we primarily just looked at metal types of fencing. And then for cost reasons, we did choose chain link, however, a black coated chain link. So the black coated chain link tends to kind of disappear into the landscape a little bit more than, the galvanized metal. And then we've also, because of the chain link is, like the perfect trellis, we've proposed some vines materials along the edges on the outside, and then garden beds for people to plant their own vining vegetables on the inside of the garden beds. So hopefully the intent is that the fencing would not be a overly like a visual eyesore or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's just my concern for staff to always keep that in mind, how it looks, right? Chain link, I get the black, and it does kind of fade away when you see it, but over time, if it does get upkeep, it starts looking more like a security perimeter. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm very excited about the prospect of community gardens. The community has asked for these for a long, long time, so this will be really wonderful for people. I visited a community garden over on Pecos, north of I-76, and what I noticed, and I had a conversation with the people because I wanted to know how much it cost and how they get their water and so on and so forth, not realizing that you guys have been working on this so diligently, and we're going to deliver this to us so soon. And one of the things that they were using was just a plot of land, basically, and then it was fenced in, as opposed to using the garden boxes. And as somebody who attempts to garden, we're throwing away our garden box now because that cedar box did not survive in the heat and getting wet all the time and having soil in and so forth. Was there consideration of having garden plots, if you will, for people in the ground as opposed to the boxes? And what went into that decision to land on the boxes?
Yeah, so we did include some in-ground plots at the Bison Ridge site. So I don't know if this will work. This area here is the in-ground, and that was kind of intended that's maybe the more programmed area. The reason we went with the raised beds is actually from the community input. It seemed like people were more interested in having individual beds like that, but I think that could be, a cost-saving option, an alternate if needed to go to in-ground. We did have soil testing done, and the CSU Extension reviewed the soil test and they had no concerns. So I don't think there's, from that standpoint, a need to go with raised beds. It was more just what the community was interested in.
Okay, thank you very much, because it's entirely up to the staff how they want to do this and what the community is looking for. I was just curious as to how the decision was made. Thank you so much. It looks fabulous.
Any other council members have questions? Councilmember Young.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled at this project. I think this is really exciting. It's so exciting for our families to be like learning how to garden, and this is like a really kind of low-risk way to start gardening. So I really appreciate this. I love the produce share box. I love everything about this. Did I understand that the boxes, like the boxes, the raised boxes would be like families could rent those? Could you tell me a little bit more about that concept?
Yeah, I think, sure, I'll let you speak to that a little bit more.
So that's another thing that staff is taking under consideration for that long-term sustainability from a programming perspective. What would the cost of the box be? How would that be internally managed? We don't want it to be a cost barrier for families to get into this, so still under evaluation.
And the soil and the seeds and all of that, like, what can you tell me a little bit about what that process would look like for families?
So at this point, I would say that we're still under consideration with that programming and how we would roll that out, really getting through site selection and design.
Sure.
And then into construction.
I'm getting down in the weeds. Sorry about that. Weeds, get it? See what I did there? Okay. I knew I could make you laugh. All right, thank you. Again, this is amazing. I love the thought that was put into it. And I also wanted to point out to Councilmember Guardiola that it looks like there's plans to put some vining along the fence. And I think that's a really nice touch to make it feel more like a homey garden and someplace that people would want to visit and be near. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Teeter.
What kind of fruit trees?
So we did get input from park staff on appropriate fruit trees. And so it's in the construction documents, but we have a certain variety of apple, I think 2 varieties of apple, a pear, and a cherry. But I don't know if I can bring up the plans right now, or if that's.
We can, or we could always get that information to you after this.
Well, I hope you got some peach trees in there.
I think we had a peach tree and we maybe had to take it out, but.
What fruit do you like, Rocky?
Yeah.
Peach. Peach. And I just have to say, this year, most of the fruit trees in southern Commerce City didn't make it, or they didn't produce any fruit because of that little freeze that we had. It just, right when the blossoms come out, it just took that one day and there's no peaches. But if anybody's interested in peaches, I got some coming. Just put your order in through the Rotary.
Councilmember Dukes.
Just want to say thank you for the presentation. I am also excited about the community gardens and the process to come to talk about how to fund it and make it happen. So thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, thank you very much. This is great. I was going to ask, I know this is how it's laid out here. Are there going to be any areas where it's shaded beds? So you cover them up, because there are plants that thrive in shade, but not in heat.
Yeah, so one of the design changes that we made from this concept plan to CDs is that row of fruit trees that's kind of on the north, actually we flipped to the other side, so the beds along that side would get a little bit of the shade from the trees. But we didn't have any, a shade structure over any of the beds.
Okay. And based on ecosystem with pollinators, it's good to have bugs there as well because they eat the bad bugs. Any mention or thought about honeybees?
Yeah, so we're not proposing actual honeybee in the garden, but okay. We do have, specifically at Bison Ridge, this whole area. Okay, it doesn't work. But the green patch kind of north of the fruit trees there,
Yes.
The new landscape area, that is intended to be all pollinator plants. And then along the fence line in both gardens, we've included little beds that are not raised, they'd be in ground, but that is where we're proposing a combination of vines and then an opportunity for pollinator plants in there as well.
Okay. Any thoughts on lily pads with the little fish or anything like that? Koi fish?
That did not come up. We did not do that, but we do have, I guess one thing I didn't mention, one of the amenities in here is a produce, unrelated, but a produce wash station. So kind of an open mesh raised thing where you can kind of throw all your veggies there and the hose will be right next door and
Nice.
you can do that. But I mean, it could be interesting to have at least like a bird bath or something that with water to attract birds and pollinators.
Because we do have hummingbirds here in Colorado as well, so it'd be pretty neat if we had.
Yeah, and one thing we wanted to is we've left kind of some open areas and didn't want to over amenitize it just so that community members can really take ownership. And so, you know, if they want to add a bird bath or add an insect hotel or anything like that, I think there's space to customize both of these a little, or for the community to, after the fact, customize both gardens.
Okay. Well, thank you. Really appreciate you guys' time and looks great. All right. Up next, presentation 26-408, Planet Geo Tree Canopy and Tree Inventory Report. Melanie Mascaneres, Sustainability Manager, forward to make a presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I wanted to introduce to you Hannah Gregory with Planet Geo. They did the tree canopy assessment for the city, Planet Geo did, and a partial tree inventory of 4,000 trees. Hannah and her team work with E3, Community is Energy, Equity, Environment, my division, Community Development, and Public Works. They said that our team they worked with, that we had virtual meetings, was the largest team they'd ever worked with. So we were all involved, a lot of divisions working with them on this tree canopy assessment. A similar presentation was given to EPIC a few months back, and the mayor and the mayor pro tem thought that was such a good presentation that they wanted it to be given here at council. So we invited Hannah and her company to come back to give the presentation. So I'll hand it off to her, but I just wanted to introduce her.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks, Melody, and thanks for having us tonight. And I will say, as a community garden member myself and my own local community, that was really exciting to hear the prior presentation. But yeah, we're really excited to have the chance to share more about this tree canopy assessment project that wrapped up a few months ago. I'll first just start with a brief agenda. So we'll begin with an overview of this project and the methodology that we used for it. We'll then dive into some of the results highlights. And then next we'll discuss our census block group level tree planting prioritization analysis. And then we'll round it out with some next steps and recommendations that we've gleaned from this assessment. And we have a lot to get through the next half hour, but we welcome questions and comments as I'm presenting, but we will have a Q&A at the end. So yeah, as Melody said, I'm Hannah. I'm Planet Geo's GIS analyst, and I was a primary technical analyst on this project in collaboration with our wonderful Commerce City team. This, as Melody said, was the largest team that we've ever worked with, and it was really fun to have so much cross-collaboration across different city departments. Morgan, on the photo here, is our awesome GIS manager, who also worked really closely on this project with the Commerce City team, but she couldn't be here today, so our Director of Urban Forestry Consulting Services, Alex, is on call
Alex, if you just want to give a quick shout out.
Yeah, hi. I think you all can hear me. Thank you so much for having us, and I'm excited to just be here. There's a lot of information that Hannah is going to present today, but if you do have any questions just on our consulting services or the broader company, I'm on the line, but Hannah is going to give you the full rundown of this report. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So we'll start with the question of why a tree canopy assessment? In order to effectively manage what you have, whether it's trees, parks, or buildings, you have to know what you have first. And most cities readily know how many parks they have or how many properties they own, but trees are a lot harder to quantify. And every tool has its kind of highest and best use, and tree canopy assessments aren't any different. They're not detailed inventories and they're not management plans. And tree canopy assessments are rightly understood as sort of preliminary tools, and they're to be used as a baseline. Tree canopy assessments provide vital information across private and public lands, which is pretty unique to tree canopy assessments. Usually tree inventories are strictly on public property, but they gain insights into the effectiveness of current policy and codes. A tree canopy assessment was a natural next step for Commerce City to take, as the city has already established a lot of initiatives such as Arbor Day celebrations each year through tree planting events and school partnerships that raise awareness of the importance of trees. Commerce City also has a dedicated public works department overseeing the planting and maintenance of landscaping on public property. The city's comprehensive plan and parks, recreation, and golf master plan emphasize the importance of expanding canopy in parks, along corridors, and in redevelopment areas. The city's 2023 Sustainability Action Plan outlines a goal to protect and expand green space and increase tree canopy coverage citywide. And lastly, there's a lot of regional collaboration through the Denver Regional Council of Governments, which aligns local efforts and broader sustainability and climate resilience goals. So this graphic is a good visual representation of a tree canopy assessment. It's a top-down approach to urban forestry, both in the literal sense and management-wise. And it's a little hard to see, but these are some common acronyms that we'll talk about throughout today's presentation. So urban tree canopy, or UTC, potential planting area, or PPA, and unsuitable areas. And we'll dive a bit more into what those mean in just a second. So our tree canopy assessment recipe starts with obtaining aerial imagery, and then we use that aerial imagery to identify and classify different land cover types. We then transform that land cover into urban tree canopy potential classes, and more on that in a second. And then we use those land cover classes to calculate metrics across different geographies. And we selected those in coordination with the city. And then we use all of that data to pull out the key findings, which we'll be sharing today. This assessment used high-resolution imagery from the USDA's National Agriculture Imagery Program, or NAEP, and we applied US Forest Service standards along with machine learning techniques to analyze the land cover in Commerce City. So here we have 6 different examples of the land cover classes, and these are Commerce City-based examples. So we have tree canopy, shrubs, other vegetation, bare soil, impervious surfaces, and water. NAEP is flown every 2 to 3 years, and it's a free government resource. It's high resolution at 60 centimeters, meaning that every 60 centimeter by 60 centimeter pixel is classified into one of these 6 land cover classes. And it's taken during leaf-on conditions, so the full extent of the canopy is captured here. The shrub class is generally going to be woody vegetation under 10 feet in height. And then the other vegetation class is going to capture anything that's like grass, open pasture, things like that. So non-woody herbaceous vegetation. And the bare soil class is mostly picking up areas that were overturned for development at the time of the imagery, which, is 2023. I forgot to mention that. So the imagery for this assessment was in summer 2023.
So in addition to quantifying Commerce City's existing tree canopy cover, areas where trees can be planted or potential / possible planting area were identified using that non-canopy vegetation class. And unsuitable areas or areas where it was not feasible to plant trees, such as recreation fields, utility and railroad corridors, flood hazard zones, and stormwater retention ponds were manually delineated and then overlaid with that existing land cover data set that I showed on the previous slide. And it's important to note that the classification of possible planting area is intended as a general guideline, not a prescriptive directive of tree placement where trees should go. And the map here is showing tree canopy, possible planting area, an area unsuitable for tree planting, which is going to be anything in like that red to pink color scheme. So there's unsuitable vegetation, unsuitable impervious, and unsuitable soil. And the little inset map is showing Central Elementary School within the Tichy neighborhood. The study area includes Commerce city limits as of 2025. And the region that we assess encompasses a mix of city, county, state, and privately managed lands across Colorado's Front Range. And to provide valuable insights for Commerce City and its partners, this assessment compiles data on urban tree canopy and related environmental metrics across multiple geographic boundaries, including rights-of-way, public versus private property, neighborhoods, and census block groups. So with that, the Commerce City team is really equipped with tons of data beyond what is shared today, but we'll jump into some of the key findings that we felt were really important to share today. And I know this is really tough to see, but the major highlight here is that we found that Commerce City is covered in canopy 3.8%, so 3.8% UTC. And that percentage itself doesn't mean a whole lot. It needs to be put into context with the surrounding region. And when we look at all of the communities across the Front Range, Commerce City falls below most of the other communities and the regional average of 10%. So you can see the little average, or the little arrow pointing where Commerce City is, and tree canopy cover across the Front Range ranges from about 35% to 1%. So it's really varying across the region. Looking at this pie chart, just re-highlighting the 4% tree canopy, 45% of the city we identified as suitable for future plantings. And then due to land use or site conditions, the remaining 51% of Commerce City's land area was considered unsuitable for tree planting. And that includes that bare soil class and impervious surfaces as well. So utilization is pretty low. There's a really great opportunity to expand tree canopy across the city. And another big highlight here is that there are more impervious surfaces than tree canopy in the city. Alongside our team's canopy assessment, Planet Geo's field services team also conducted a sample inventory of 4,000 public trees in the city. And they found that the trees that exist on the public land are managed really well. There's 80% of existing trees they found were in fair, good, or excellent condition. And just noting here that this assessment did not assess private trees, just public trees. They did find that there's a major lack of diversity among tree species. They found that Siberian elm was about a quarter of the tree inventory of the 4,000 trees that were inventoried, and 4 species make up 65% of the trees inventoried. And typically you don't want to exceed 10% of one species, making up the overall population. There's a more focused effort in collaboration with CU Boulder, led by Olivia, that took place last year within a disproportionately impacted neighborhood, inventorying both public and private trees. So they found that, they assessed 950 existing trees and highlighted 139 high priority planting sites in the neighborhood. So together, these inventories serve as a really good baseline and can be looked at in tandem with the tree canopy assessment results. to further these types of initiatives in the city. So rights-of-way are a really key component of Commerce City's tree canopy. They're very visible public spaces that line sidewalks and streets, and they play a really big role in people's daily experience with trees. In Commerce City, rights-of-way cover more than 3,900 acres, representing 17% of the total land area within the city. And canopy cover within rights-of-ways average 4%, so about the same as the overall city average, and 32% of their total area is identified as suitable for planting. So in the map example that I have here on the screen, I know it's a little small, but we've highlighted the Derby area, which is the heart of Commerce City's revitalizing downtown. And the rights-of-way in this neighborhood currently have about 6% tree canopy cover overall, and they offer about 2 acres of plantable space. And 2 acres might not sound like a lot of space to plant trees, but if you think of a piece of land being transitioned from grass to trees, that makes a really big difference in providing shade and creating just a more comfortable, welcoming streetscape. And it also helps provide that canopy connectivity between public and private lands. And then just these 2 little inset maps were just 2 examples that we showed. So the one labeled 1, which is the top one, is an example of plantable space and tree canopy in the residential rights-of-way on East 74th Street and Garden Court, just north of Hanson Elementary School. And the inset map labeled 2, which is the second one, is the plantable space and tree canopy in the rights-of-way near the Los Valientes Park. So planting in Commerce City's rights-of-way faces a lot of challenges just due to limited planting strips, especially in the older neighborhoods, which will require some coordination with the adjacent residents. But this can really open up some opportunities for collaborative public-private tree planting and shared neighborhood stewardship for those right-of-way trees. When we look at tree canopy data in Commerce City, we see sort of a clear difference between private and public properties. Each offer unique opportunities to grow the city's urban forests. Private properties make up 71% of Commerce City's land area and contain 73% of the city's total canopy. So that represents the largest share of both existing trees, and they also have the largest share of potential planting areas. Public lands, on the other hand, contribute 10% of the total possible planting area. Schools play a key role in expanding canopy coverage with an average 3% canopy, so a little bit less than the overall average, and 38% of their land dedicated as potential planting area. Some schools like Kemp and Central Elementary have stronger tree canopy coverage, while other schools are almost treeless but offer large planting opportunities. And looking at the distribution of, because the distribution is largely weighted towards private property when it comes to expanding the urban forests, the engagement with private property owners will be really important. And that can be accomplished through targeted public plantings in parks and schools. And that can really help foster that community stewardship and also help motivate and give confidence to residents to plant trees on their own properties. We looked at tree canopy results at the neighborhood level, which revealed a major variation of tree canopy across Commerce City's 80 neighborhoods, from less than 2% to over 11%. And we can use this data to help identify priority areas to plant and invest more resources into. Residential neighborhoods like River Run, Memory Lane Gardens, North Range Village, and villages at Buffalo Run West show strong canopy levels ranging from 16 to 17%. Again, highlighting that crucial role of private property owners in urban forest success and preservation. The Derby neighborhood has about 11% tree canopy and around 38 acres of land where new trees could be planted. And with that focus of revitalization and its mix of public spaces, Derby has a really great opportunity to expand tree canopy and boost those benefits that trees bring to an area where many gather. It's important to note that, 26 neighborhoods have less than 1% tree canopy, but most neighborhoods across Commerce City have at least 20% of their area available for planting. And so even just using a small portion of that 20% planting area across all the neighborhoods can make a really big difference when it comes to shade, aesthetics, and overall neighborhood health. We just wanted to highlight that neighborhood age plays a really big role in the distribution of canopy across town. A lot of the southern and central neighborhoods have a lot of mature trees, and a lot of those newer neighborhoods in the north and east have fewer trees just because they are newer. There's some industrial neighborhoods like DII Tech Center, Buffalo Highlands, and Third Creek West that have really low canopy, under 1%. But ongoing plantings in those areas are expected to improve canopy cover over time. To achieve equitable greening, Commerce City should prioritize planting in areas with low canopy but high planting potential, especially larger or community-centered neighborhoods like Derby, Reunion, or Victory Crossing that also have some public parks to really get in on those joint efforts. On the screen here, we have 3 examples of urban tree canopy and possible planting area within specified areas within 3 different neighborhoods, River Oaks, Reunion, and Aspen Hills. And I know that legend is hard to see, but that bright green shows area that is potential planting area. In addition to looking at how trees are distributed across the city, we also estimated the benefits that trees provide across all of Commerce City. To do this, we used iTree tools to assess Commerce City's total tree canopy benefits and ecological functions. And to put these numbers into perspective, trees do a lot more than just look nice. They clean the air by capturing pollutants and cooling the surrounding areas. They reduce flooding, erosion, and water pollution, especially in areas that have a lot of impervious surfaces. And over time, trees store carbon, which plays a really important role in climate mitigation. And with that in mind, Commerce City's current canopy as of 2023 provides over $420,000 in annual avoided infrastructure costs. So that means that each additional acre of mature canopy yields about $458 of added benefits per year. Next, we'll dive into our tree planting prioritization analysis, which will help guide where tree plantings will make the greatest impact across the city. So we do our planting prioritization analysis at the census block group level because we can link tree canopy equity using those demographic and socioeconomic variables from the American Community Survey. So we found that of the 38 census block groups across Commerce City, 27 census block groups have above average canopy, so over 4% canopy, while 11 fall below that 4% average, and those 11 that fall below the average represent 64% of the city's land area, so they kind of lower the overall average. 16 census block groups have more than 30% of their area identified as plantable space, and that accounts for 80% of the city's total planting opportunity. Expanding canopy in these areas where there's low coverage and higher socioeconomic need can yield both environmental and social benefits, but we understand that plantable space is not the only factor to consider where to plant more trees. So for our prioritization analysis, we looked at 12 different variables to prioritize census block groups based on their need for tree planting. And so our data sources include 5 different socioeconomic variables from the 2022 Census American Community Survey, urban heat data from Landsat imagery, 2 soil quality variables from the USA Soil Map Units dataset, K-factor and hydrological soil group, which I know sounds really crazy, but one is just the K-factor is just the the erosion proneness of soils, and hydrological soil group is just how well a soil drains. We also integrated the Colorado EnviroScreen score. And so all these 12 variables were normalized and weighted equally, and were given a composite score where those multiple needs overlapped, and then they were ranked from 1 to 38. One thing we wanted to highlight here, since it's a major variable to consider here in Commerce City, is heat. So the dark blue areas on the map show the hottest parts of the city where pavement kind of acts as sponges for the heat. So planting trees strategically in these areas where they'll eventually provide direct shade to sidewalks, parking lots, and homes will really make the greatest impact. There are some things to consider though. Irrigation and heat stress are something to keep in mind when planting in these high heat zones. It's important to make sure that the necessary resources are allocated to any new trees that are planted before they're planted to help ensure that they survive and are a good investment. To dive into a couple more of these variables that are especially important in Commerce City, the city's urban forest is hindered by poor soil conditions, especially in the southern areas on the map there. The city's dominant soil types present challenges like dryness, compaction, and poor drainage. And erosion risk also varies across the city, with certain areas being more prone to soil loss during storms because of erosion risk. So expanding canopy in those areas will require selecting resilient tree species, improving soil health and irrigation before planting, and using data-driven long-term management and investment strategies. And the map here shows a map of the hydrological soil group across Commerce City. And I've circled a couple areas there where areas that suffer from multiple shortcomings, so low infiltration rate and high erosion potential. This map here shows the overall prioritization rankings for Commerce City's census block groups, where dark blue on the map shows the higher priority areas and the yellow shows like the lower priority areas. So most of Commerce City's highest priority tree planting areas are concentrated in the southern and central neighborhoods. Planting trees in those zones can help reduce soil or social health and environmental inequities, especially when they're planted near community hubs, walkways, and transit routes. And while these rankings provide a strong data-based framework, real-world implementation should also consider factors like community engagement, infrastructural conflicts, and alignment with other city programs. So wrapping up here with some recommendations for Commerce City based on this tree canopy assessment. So Commerce City has positioned itself really well in the urban forestry space through initiatives and staff growth with the new landscape architect, summer interns, and 2 arborists on staffs. And so an urban forester would be a great next step to have a dedicated individual to ensure that those initiatives that we've started and the data and lessons learned from them are implemented successfully. So that would mean trees would continue to be inventoried. Any new trees that are planted would be added to that inventory and tracked, and tree canopy assessments would be completed every 5-ish years. Some additional recommendations are grow shade where it's needed most, with a focus on equity and connecting tree canopy across the city. So we identified that those south central neighborhoods are high priority because they are historically underserved and lack canopy, especially since a lot of those mature trees are aging out in those areas. Build trees into new development and redevelopments at the very start of those projects, prioritizing high traffic community spaces and corridor plantings to add shade to those hot areas that need it most. The second one is making trees a part of city policy and planning so that it's very durable and it's not just a one-time push. Breaking the citywide goal that was in the Sustainability Action Plan into smaller geographies like neighborhoods or zoning or census block groups would be really helpful to help meet those goals on a smaller level. and embedding those into planning docs. There's setting annual target plantings and ongoing tree inventory, updating codes to protect and enhance tree canopy, and then also piloting some early action projects. Some of those quick wins can really help build momentum for larger projects across the city. The next recommendation is engaging the community, which will be really important because we talked a lot about how most of the canopy and potential planting area lies on private property. And so stewardship will be really important for the long-term survival of any new trees planted and for the existing canopy. So community involvement really drives that long-term forest health. The fourth one is enhancing irrigation and water efficiency. Irrigation and soil tests are going to be the survival infrastructure for new trees, especially in such a dry climate that experiences so many droughts. So modernizing irrigation, especially in southern Commerce City, which is really impacted by drought and lack of irrigation. Xeriscaping where it fits and soil amendments before planting can really help make sure that investment stands. I also just wanted to shout out that the ADA Accessible Tree Canopy Assessment Report that we provided to the city is now available on the city website. So there's a lot more data in there that you guys can dig into. And it goes way more in depth than this presentation today. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much. That was a lot of information, Jen, and this has a lot packed when it comes to, what we can do to improve and some of the challenges too, because it is very challenging.
Right.
Councilmembers have a question? Councilmember Goriola?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you for this presentation. A lot of good information. Kudos to our staff, right? Just the 80% of our trees, right? And I know we have an amazing parks and folks that take care of our grounds, right? And you could tell, and you could show, it really shows the pride that that department has. And I guess my question is to staff, is like, so we have these recommendations, right? We have the answers to the test. Where are we at? What do we do? Or what as council has to do to get to the point where we're moving the mark, right? What are those low-hanging fruits? There's a number of community members that have asked about the tree canopy. And I think we could get creative if it is something monetary, right? Like you guys are asking for another FTE, basically. But what are things we could do now? And how do we get creative? Because I think one of my biggest things is how do we get our corporate sponsors to partner with us, right? And that's an idea I had when I was campaigning of how do we, now we're at the table with our largest partner, and we've had these conversations. How do they partner with us to help plant more trees? And so I don't know, Mr. Rogers, if you answer that, or where are we at? I know it's a lot.
No, so I think, Forthright, we're nowhere beyond what you have as your presentation. I think the presentation does a very good job of laying out some of the policy considerations and big picture on where we would like to go. I think when we get into the details pertaining to just irrigation systems and what that would require, I think this to me is still a stage one engagement to where there's still some refinement that needs to be done at a much more granular level to understand the true impact and the cost associated with that and the longevity of what we're asking to move forward. So the presentation, and I think it's a great one that, it was had at boards and commission, and, my staff supported, some information that was shared, but fundamentally there hasn't been a budgetary discussion and or an operational one to where there's a level of comfort of understanding the pragmatic steps that would need to be taken. And I think that's where we need to be beyond just this initial recommendation that's come out from one of your boards and commissions for us then to further assess what breaks into a policy guidance and leadership discussion, where there may be some budgetary implications versus an operational due diligence and analysis that we would have to conduct that may have some overlap, but we haven't got to that stage because we haven't been able to get past this initial benchmarking with council about what we understand and what we know in today's world.
So then next step is that.
Yes, I think there's more internal conversation that we need to be able to have. Like I said, to get into the granularities with the appropriate staff and what does that look like. I know there's the recommendation of hiring an urban forester that comes out of this group, but then we have to kind of look at what that means in the day-to-day, the operational expectation. Is it just one as we kind of dive into those details, or is it more? And what is that cost associated with that, not just in 1 year, but across a number of years when you're talking about personnel? That's where we get into that granularity. But I think at the same time, there's some big picture things that, based on what you heard and what our EBIT group has heard, that we will ultimately have to still follow up with you all on, and being able to activate, whether that's with new development, existing development, our opportunities that we have in our open space, and as we continue to think about that through our capital improvement program for the upcoming years, and being able to ensure that we have enough budget there as well in protecting and managing our vegetation, for lack of a better word. So I think there's still more to come, and I think, the due diligence is now upon us and our team to come back after we've been able to have that conversation and be confident about what we're presenting to you as something that's accomplishable.
Okay, yeah, no, because again, so many times just life gets busy and we start forgetting, right? So definitely excited to see what your staff comes up with, because this is a priority, I think, for a lot of us on council to keep it moving, and I think our residents deserve it.
If my memory also serves me correct, why I say that there's still a number of different steps that we need to take forward, because you also have identified it as part of your cross-cutting themes within your draft goal category priorities as part of the strategic plan. So there's an acknowledgement that, yes, there's some work that we need to do with respect to this. Now that we have this, now that you all have heard this, and there's a general excitement and support behind this, then we have to do that next level work.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Dukes, and then Councilmember Teeter.
Thank you very much for making the presentation. It was so comprehensive, and it's incredible that staff was working together across all departments in order to make this happen. It's really great, and it was certainly something that the entire city council needed to see, as well as the community, not just Epic. But I'm so glad that I think it was maybe our first meeting that you were making the presentation at Epic, so thank you. And thank you, Hannah, for coming all the way down from Montana as well. That's
Yeah,
a
of
beautiful
course.
state.
Thank you.
And a lot of trees there. There's a couple of things that are on my mind too. The trees that are near the end of their lives in the south, and how that kind of issue gets taken care of. I noticed on one of the charts also that there was an area that was extremely hot, but it was also considered one of the lowest priorities for having anything done. And additionally, my husband will be so happy to find out that he's right, the soil here is bad. So he keeps wondering why it's so hard to grow anything in Reunion, and now I know it's a fact. So those are some of the questions in my mind, and going back to what Councilmember Guardiola said, I'm looking at our poster boards from our retreat in March, and one of the little stick-it notes says polluter partnerships to increase health. So that was one of the ideas that was brought up there. And then also there was a great deal of interest in a tree program and canopy cover, in particular replacement. So we were talking about this back in March at our retreat as well, and we hadn't seen this yet. So those are two important things to do. But how are trees addressed that are at the end of their lives? And then secondly, just do that one first, and then I'll come back to the second one.
Yeah, Alex, I might tap into you for this question since it's a little bit more management focused. If you could speak to that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So with our GIS team, they're typically reporting out on existing conditions and making some generalized recommendations, but our planning team gets into a lot more detail on how to deal with the risks that face the urban forest. So when you're talking about aging out a certain species of trees in certain geographic areas, there are ways to get much more granular with making those planting recommendations of how many trees you might need to anticipate in certain areas of the city, because you know that those trees are at the end of their lifespan. And whether it's just the end of their lifespan because they're older trees, mature trees, or if it's because there may be a pest or disease that's coming through. There are ways that we can make those planned investments in those different geographies based on the inventory data and canopy data combined. So I think with this state of the data, it's as some of the others were saying, the next steps would be to take a closer look on how you're making those investments and where. And an urban forester would be the person to lead that.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question would be about the areas where they were seen as low priority, but they were among the hottest, which I would think would be an area that would need trees.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So the way we do our planting prioritization analysis is we weigh all 12 of those variables equally. And so the areas that came up as highest priority just had more variables that were more other variables outside of heat that were making those higher priority. And that's why I wanted to highlight the heat variable specifically, because that overall score that weighs all 12 of those variables, including the socioeconomic, the climate variables, et cetera, gives a good overview if you're wanting to look at all 12 of those variables. But if you're really concerned with heat, which Commerce City seems like it's really concerned with heat, then you guys could internally prioritize that as something that you'd like to pull out of this analysis and really run with.
Well, thank you. And it is a quality of life issue. Clearly on the chart where you showed all of the other neighborhoods around the Denver region, certainly the most expensive neighborhoods were the ones with the most trees. Thank you.
Councilmember Dukes.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Like others before me, we talked about how important this is for us as a city to have tree canopy. And I guess I'm gonna do a follow-up question to Councilmember Garriola's point around just next steps. And I guess my question is, based on the data, which I see it's comprehensive, and there's a lot of granularity that need to take place afterwards. But in your opinion, if we were to have two pilot areas, are there spaces that we should think about as pilots or two content or target areas that we can move after or go towards that might yield the best result if we think about cascading this approach for the next several years? That's my first question.
Yeah, so that definitely gets into some of the more granular management that someone like Alex's team would work on. But what I can speak to, looking at the distribution across Commerce City, I personally think it would be really interesting to pick one area from the north Commerce City and one area from southern Commerce City. So looking at a couple of those areas, like Reunion, I think was one of the ones that I pulled out that had a nice city park or city-owned property at least within it, and piloting some private-public coordination efforts on those areas where there's a lot of possible planting area, not a lot of tree canopy. So that would be one example in a northern area where the focus would be on a neighborhood lacking tree canopy. But then I think it's also just as important to pilot a project in the southern Commerce City area in a neighborhood with a lot of maturing canopy that will need that investment so that as those trees die off, those trees are, there's young trees to replace them.
What area would you recommend? Is that, I noticed the Derby Triangle is, and that's a mix between some canopy issues, some right-of-way issues, and then some private partnerships. Is that an area you would recommend us to look at or explore?
Yeah, I think so. I think since it seems like that's an area that is already being invested in currently with the revitalization projects, there's also seems to be a lot of community events and gathering spaces there, and there are some public property opportunities to for some public-private coordination efforts, and also with the school there too. I think that's really the best pilot projects incorporate public property on like city parks, have schools involved, and then also have that private engagement as well, like in the right, whether that's in the right of way or on private residential properties.
Thank you. And then City Manager Rogers, I know one of the priorities Mayor Pro Tem Noble mentioned was that this was in our council retreat. And so on a policy vision perspective, we want to move forward with tree canopies. I guess from your stance, you mentioned a granularity. Are there specific questions that we need to share with you so we can think about moving forward, or answer for you that we can begin to move forward? And if so, what are those questions?
At this stage, I can't answer that. Like I said, this conversation, while it's been a work product in support of a discussion with our boards and commission, fundamentally, I haven't been able to dive into the granular details of programmatically what that might look like operationally and or from a policy perspective.
Okay, that makes sense. Is there a time frame where we want to come back and circle back when you have a chance to look at the questions that we can answer? Again, going to Councilmember Guardiola's point where, things get busy. And so we want to keep this momentum on this great report, and this great momentum is currently happening.
Yeah, that's another one I can't commit when to come back, because as we all know, right, there's a number of things. You just had one on the community gardens, right? And so evaluating prospectively, yes, priorities and thinking about the sustainable health, both environmentally and physically of our community, what may be the necessary trade-offs in association with what we're doing operationally that I need to evaluate and present to this council once I have some clarity around that broadly. So that could take some time in making sure and ensuring I have that conversation with the appropriate departments. So I would say it's, if we're bringing it to you all tonight, that there's an awareness by us as staff that, yes, this is a priority, that this is of an interest and consideration by the council. So we will do our best to fit it into the current operational programming that we have so that we can take that next formative step as to what is accomplishable within the means that we have as far as resources, or what would be necessary and what may have to trade off.
Thank you, City Manager. I guess I'm just, I'm trying to get clarity around this tension around the implementation and then a policy vision, and the need to, I understand the need to talk with your team, but what, I guess there's also a need to get policy direction from council, but I'm not clear on what direction you need to support the implementation. Is it the trade-off discussion around what we think are priorities?
Potentially. And like I said, I can't speak to what those trade-offs are until I do that due diligence. But once again, you already have given some higher level policy guidance with the discussion within the strategic plan. So there's already a general support to move it forward. Now we're getting into that blending from, okay, my policy and my guidance and my priority setting to operationally what's accomplishable, what can be accomplished, and if what cannot, what gets traded with respect to the resources that we have. And that
so
is
I guess City Manager Rogers, so what I'm hearing, like, it's tonight you hear that we want to move forward. If we have consensus, that's all you need right now? Is that the policy
that's all I need right now, and then I will come back to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Teeter.
Yeah, I don't know if this is part of the policy or not. Are evergreens in the canopy program?
So our canopy assessment didn't distinguish between deciduous and evergreen, but that could definitely be amended into a future canopy assessment. We have seen that as a sort of standard moving forward. We've done a lot of projects that have wanted to look at evergreen and deciduous, but that wasn't a part of this project.
Okay, because I was kind of following on the same lines as Councilmember Yardiola, as far as evergreens between Suncor and the train tracks, or the train just as a blockage, you know, to kind of shield it. Where waste management is at on I-270, it'd be nice to have something blocking between I-270 and waste management. Highway 2 and the railroad tracks. I know that's undesirable area according to your report, but what if you brought in topsoil?
Yeah, and I think that's a beauty of these assessments, is that we don't have the local context, and so, you know, we're able to give recommendations and speak to the data as we know it, and then you guys can kind of run with it and you know, identify the areas that are really meaningful since you have that local context. Yeah, like you mentioned, like an evergreen barrier or something like that. Yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing, is that you guys now have all of this data to parse through and make these sort of decisions.
And is topsoil the right soil to bring in?
I think that would, yeah, that's where my knowledge kind of falls off. I'm not a soil scientist, but I think that would be a really good next step, is to get the opinion of someone who knows what they're talking about when it comes to soil. But I think some amending is needed.
I guess that CU's got it. Don't they analyze the soil and stuff up there?
Yeah, do they?
I'm not certain. I should add too is that we're trying E3. Oh, sorry. E3, our program is taking this information and trying to springboard off of it to get grants and such. We're trying to do some workshops next year with our residents on soil health and planting trees. We have an intern with us this summer looking at all our sustainability action plan, this assessment. The inventory that was done on the 4,000 trees was a risk assessment and picture of trees, mostly in our parks, and that was taken and put into Cartograph, what Public Works uses to track the trees. So that way we can keep an eye on the trees and the tree health. And there's a few folks in Public Works that are arborists that we work with too, that will help with this effort also. So we all these different divisions work towards that, and I imagine in the future that's what we'll continue to do if we get grants or have more direction from city manager on how to proceed.
And then last question is on some of these trees that are dying, is it from the drought or is it from disease?
So I think that yeah, thank you. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was a separate report that the field services team put together based on the inventory. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so my team was specifically the tree canopy assessment. There should be more information coming out about the accompanying tree inventory that was done. So that was a separate team, and they should be releasing some reporting materials. And there's also an online application that all of those trees are uploaded in. We can follow up with the link to that, so you can like kind of click on the trees and see each individual tree.
City Manager Rogers, for your report. I'm sorry. City Manager Rogers?
I think Alex was going to assist, so I can give a little bit more background afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex.
Yes, I was just going to jump in to offer that the tree inventory that was completed by our field services team does include maintenance priorities. And so with that, you get priority 1, 2, and 3 applied to each tree that was collected, and it gives some maintenance direction on whether it's just pruning or trimming that's needed versus an actual removal of the tree. And with that comes some details on the reason for that. And so there is a lot of that material, just not in today's presentation, but there is with the reporting that came from the other team.
Thanks, Alex.
City Manager Rogers.
So one that I think that you all aren't aware of, that, you know, we are preparing a conversation that ultimately will come before you for the 2027 budget, is a discussion around tree canopy workshops. So with obviously this conversation here and some of the supplemental information, once again, haven't gotten into the details at that level, it may then ultimately modulate some of the initial numbers that we brought forward or would plan to bring forward in the next couple of months to kind of talk through what we can begin to work on next year. But I would say, you know, once again, looking at these recommendations from a higher level administrative perspective, we'll be able to think about how we can maybe, like I said, blend it with what we were already going to be doing and position it so that there is some work in support of what we're hearing today from this analysis that still ties into your strategic plan that'll be discussed a little bit later, that already has it as a, once again, gold category priority.
Thank you. Councilmember Kim.
Thank you for the presentation. I have more of a statement, and City Manager, I do understand that you have to go through and review this to identify exactly what can come back before council. Just some recommendations, and obviously this is probably something you already had in mind, was maybe there's some grant opportunities that might be out there. Maybe we have an adopt a tree program or something where people can actually plant trees. Obviously, the partnerships between public and private would be ideal as well, if it's possible that we can explore that. And maybe we relook at this every 4 or 5 years, but we set a number of trees per year to be planted in those areas. But again, those are just comments and recommendations only.
Yes, I appreciate that. You know, like I said, I think there's some big takeaways. I think the one thing that I still need to translate is this is a high level policy document that's giving you some recommendations. Okay, programmatically, what gets encapsulated within that we can do with private property? What can private property do for itself? You know, for example, I come from a community where you remove a tree, you do a 2-to-1 ratio to be able to put back into that canopy, so that once again you're not losing that. There are pathways forward in being able to assess that, and that's where time will be needed to kind of talk through what that urban canopy kind of tree program looks like, both not just for public areas but private areas, partnerships, and so forth. And I think we can start to think about what that looks like. And how we monitor that and how we communicate that on an annual basis, or even more so, through some of this initial work that will come back to you. But I think your recommendations are sound. Like I said, we've reviewed this, but we really want to put some of that work in earnest work into it to really understand the really drill down implications. So I appreciate that.
Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been just listening to the comments from the other city council members and kind of reviewing the presentation. And what I'm really appreciating is the complexity of this project, that it's more than just finding money to plant some trees, that there's a lot of factors that have gone into the work that you've done. And I'm looking at the maps and the overlays and the priorities and where trees can go and where they can't, and soil. And so I just, my comment to the staff and to you is, I really appreciate the work that you've put into it, and I appreciate City Manager Rogers, the complexity of all of these decisions that have to be made and what needs to be taken into account. I think that we've all kind of echoed here that this is this seems like a really important project for all of us. I have a day job where I help fund scholars, and I hear scholars come back all the time and say, you know, I was in Fort Collins or I went to school in Boulder, and it's more challenging to come back here because there's so many trees on campus there. And so I echo that sentiment as well. And this, just from an environmental standpoint, from a, you know, people living in our community and knowing that they're valued, health and well-being, mental health, all of that, I'm really glad for the robust discussion, and I'm really glad that we're moving this up the chain of priorities.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. This was, such a wonderful, passionate group of folks that we've worked with. And it was personally one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on with Planet Geo. So, yeah.
And thank you very much for such a detailed presentation. And I know when we brought it forward to EPAC, it opened our minds up of where we need to be. And I can tell you right now, we didn't have arborists at all years ago in Commerce City, and that was needed. Now we have two, and then we have an intern. And so in order to get a urban forester, that's the next step as well. And, up north, you would see, I know I moved in there in 2004, we had to condition our soil because the developer didn't do that. So, clay bust and whatever it took in order to mitigate that hardness, because it was you couldn't take a shovel and just dig. So you turn a lot of dirt over, but it did help. Trees have come in, and as trees grow as well as they go tall, it's the same thing underneath. They don't have shallow, some have shallow roots, but they also go very deep. So when you have to replace a large tree, that's a lot of work to take those old roots out.
Yeah, it is. As someone who's done it.
Yes, and people are also finding out that the roots are going towards the irrigation system.
Right.
So some folks may have problems with the sprinkler system, and then they dig down and it get pinched by a root of a tree. Mm-hmm. So those are the challenges you have when you want to make those changes, right? So then, as far as moving forward, we do have development up north, but they don't have the lot size to handle a tree. Mm-hmm. And the older neighbors did. Mm-hmm. But they also planted maybe 3 or 4 trees in front of a yard too, which was more than enough. Mm-hmm. Should have had 3 trees instead of 4, right? Also, there's a rush to plant these trees. A lot of them didn't take the metal rings around the roots. So we had a lot of trees that died that way as well. And so lessons learned.
Yeah.
And that's why we need these experts so we don't have 4 species of trees all over the city. What were those 4 species of trees?
I would have to go back into the report. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay.
But they should be in the link that I'll follow up. I'll send to Melody. The tree plotter inventory is what it's called. It's what the inventory team used to plot all of the trees, and it gives some really nice overviews and like pie charts of the main species and the main genera and things like that, and the health and things like that. Yeah.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks again. And the city manager, Roger, did you okay with everything? Did you get the consensus that moving forward? I mean, this is packed with a lot of information, and where do you start, and then actually come up with sort of a pilot program?
Yeah, I think generally we're already in alignment and supportive of where we're going. Like I said, now the devil's in the details, and we have to flesh the details out, and those details will matter across, as you heard, multiple departments were participatory in this. So we have to think about the needed resources, the implication of those resources, and not just to the departments, but to the overall budget and to our long-term financial sustainability. So balancing all of that is where now this leads us to, and then thinking about that from an equitable standpoint, establishing a program that is both transparent but also able to provide consistent practice and understanding of how to get to these various points. And that's where the work needs to now really transition to.
Okay, thank you. And thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Especially
thank you all
coming
so
down
much.
from where to be live, instead of online.
Yeah.
That says a lot. You really
Yeah.
do care.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, as I said, it was a wonderful group to work with, and I'm excited to see what you guys do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you too, Alex. All right, and up next is presentation 25-638, Community Wellbeing, E3 Quarterly Update. And I'll invite Sarah Mondzier?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to butcher that, but
Well, technically, we say Mondesire, but in the Caribbean, you said it the right way.
Okay,
So I'm
thank you.
impressed. So I first wanted to start by giving a shout out to a most recent event that we held this past weekend, was our 4th annual backpack event. It's the. Just want to highlight a couple photos. So like I said, it was our 4th annual backpack giveaway event. We originally started in partnership with 180 Community Church in the basement of their church, and we've expanded so much that we've been hosting it at Pioneer Park. Despite the heat, we still had about 800 and 900 attendees. It was a great turnout. We distributed over 700 backpacks. And this year we had CCPD, the fire department, Adams County, and our nonprofit partners attend. So want to give a big shout out to them, and for you all, this event and program wouldn't be possible without your support. So
thank you. Appreciate that.
yes. To the presentation, please. Thank you, Jordan. All right, so back in March, I believe, I briefly presented our participation in the National League of Cities Community Health and Wellbeing Accelerator. Tonight, I will be providing an overview of what the work entailed, some background information, and hopeful next steps. So as a refresher, the National League of Cities hosts a Community Health and Wellbeing Accelerator program. Commerce City was selected as one of the 6 cities nationwide to join into this program. It was a 12-month immersive planning process that builds city capacity to address root causes, look at health disparities by aligning resources, leveraging local assets, and then hopefully transformative policies and system change to come. There are 5 other cities are listed below. This picture here was the all cities convening in DC, so we got to really meet with the folks that we've been meeting with on a bi-monthly basis, learn from them programs that they are doing in their own cities. It was a really cool experience to collaborate and learn, and also the camaraderie that we're all kind of enduring the same hardships of the work that we're trying to do. So each city had 2 cohort teams. The first one is the core team. We met bi-monthly. It consisted of myself, Assistant City Manager Jim Tolbert, our Health and Food Equity Navigator Paulina Ursua. We had our senior bilingual communication specialist, Alondra Gonzalez, and then we had 2 external partners that made up our team, which included a systems coordinator from Community Safety and Wellbeing's Department for Adams County, as well as the Deputy Director Delaney of Almost Home. There was also the leadership track team. They met quarterly with the other city's leadership track team, and that included our Deputy City Manager, Courtney Brown, and then our Assistant City Manager, Jason Dennison. So the work first began by laying the foundation, which entailed intensive data collection and analysis. For probably the first couple months, that's what it consisted of. We looked into data in 4 key areas, which included economic opportunity, housing, city planning and design, health and human services. In each of those 4 areas, we identified key issues and cross-cutting themes, which included un and underemployment, low educational attainment, stagnant wages for renters, lack of available housing, geographical isolation and lack of transportation, and then also high rates of chronic disease and barriers to accessing food. From the data collection initial analysis, we then established 2 to 3 emerging priorities per each issue area. The overall summary was that we need to improve transportation services and infrastructure to increase access to services and resources, address the differing needs and divide between the North and the South, and then also address affordability in the realms of housing, food, and healthcare. The next step we also did, which was we utilized a tool assessment, which is the Cities of Opportunities Capacity Checklist. We conducted a cross-departmental collaboration to examine the city's current capacity, opportunities, and challenges in the 7 following areas below. Through all of that interdepartmental collaboration, the assets we identified, of course, is our ARPA funds and the ACT program, non-monetary resources, including space, fleet, and equipment, community partnerships, and then strong cross-departmental collaboration. Some challenges that were identified in all the areas included the end of ARPA funds, limited internal capacity and bandwidth, and varying levels of understanding and role and strategic priorities. But opportunities that were identified is developing a shared framework, strengthen data systems and reporting processes, and then leveraging recent community assessments that have been conducted. Through all the work plans, data analysis, tools that we had completed during the 12 months, we started beginning to build out our accelerated work plan creation. The overall goal that we want to accomplish is healthier residents, and 5 priority focus areas were determined, which is access to quality housing, healthy foods, quality healthcare, transportation, and economic opportunities. From those 5 priority focus areas, we then identified strategies in each. The attachment that was included in the council communication had way more action strategies, but I just only wanted to identify a few in each. So the first priority strategy 1 is increase and improve housing inventory and strengthen partnerships with housing partners. Few key actions include review the county housing plan and identify alignment opportunities, create a streamlined referral system with the housing partners, and then implement an ADU strategy after the new land development code is in place. Priority strategy number 2, we identified wanting to increase food access by expanding free meals and grocery programs. Few key actions include like doing an inventory of all the food sources, the affordability, freshness, and cultural relevance. We hear a lot that the food distribution sites and food banks currently don't provide culturally responsive food, so we want to make that a priority through community well-being. We also want to coordinate again with Adams County on their food systems resilience plan and expand partnerships for warm meals, mobile markets, and school programs. Paulina has done a really great job on leading our food initiatives. There have been 2 new programs, the We Don't Waste Food Mobile Market. It's actually occurring tomorrow. That's a monthly food distribution site, as well as our new partnership with Adams County with food distribution boxes up north in partnership with Nativity Lutheran Church, and that is also tomorrow as well. So 1 in the afternoon up north, 1 in the morning down south, and then 1 in the afternoon up north. Priority strategy number 3 is provide quality healthcare access and wellness initiatives for residents. A few key actions, again, is partnering with Adams County Community Health Improvement Plan. This is a new group that has been meeting, and Paulina has been participating, which is exciting. Identifying high-need areas for mobile healthcare sites and increase awareness and access to green space for health outcomes. So we also want to not only have partnerships for medical services, but utilizing built-in environments and green spaces. All right, our 4th strategy is improve transportation access and increase connectivity. Identifying existing transportation services and resources, support efforts by DRCOG to establish microtransit opportunities, and improve public transportation stops to promote accessibility and safety. And for our last one is support workforce development pathways to higher paying jobs and prioritize career pathways. We do have our current C3 Promise partnership, but we want to establish a long-term workforce pathway program budget. Collect and audit workforce data aligned with community outcomes. And right now, what we're currently doing is recruiting employers support the student pathway program and expand on-site employment preparation resources on our 5th floor and partnerships. As next steps, we do want to bring forward a resolution, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I do want to highlight each piece of this honeycomb graphic is what we strive for and aim to accomplish to execute this accelerator work plan. I will now hand it off to Melody for E3's update.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Douglas, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Melody Mascarenas, Sustainability Manager for Commerce City in the Energy Equity Environment Division. We're doing our update today with community well-being. I'd also like to introduce the rest of my team, Libby Tartar, Senior Environmental Planner, and Olivia Quagliani, Sustainability Program Coordinator. And you might recognize us from our monthly updates we used to do on oil and gas, and now we are going to talk about all the other work that we do and the work we do with community well-being. Thank you, Libby. Our first slide is on energy efficiency and collaboration with community well-being. And this slide here shows some pictures on it. The first one being that we partnered with community well-being at the resource fair. We had a table with Xcel Energy there with the weatherization effort we're doing. So we're working with Xcel's partners in energy and on this weatherization effort. It's in its second phase plan implementation. And I also brought some brochures on that. We have them in English and Spanish that I'll pass around or later. And it talks about the program that we're working on with weatherization to our residents. And we also have another brochure for renters. And this is if you wanted to, it's perforated and you can give it to your landlord to ask him to do weatherization on your rental unit. And we'll pass those out later. We also are working on with Xcel Energy, and that's under the Strategy 4 on the League of Cities, is the Improving Transportation Access Electric Vehicle Action Plan. And we're working that phase of that is on the second phase implementation. And that is gonna last another 18 months. And that's it's an equitable plan to put more EV chargers in the city. We're looking at where they are now, working with the community and trying to build out that with EV chargers in the city. Libby's in charge of that effort on the readiness plan. So if you have any questions regarding that. The next slide is grants. As you may know, we received the Denver Regional Council of Government DRCOG grant. That was close to 1.2 million, that grant. And we're looking to use that to promote training with community development and other staff, lead training and others, and then also build on staffing capacity. And we're going through that right now, working on position descriptions. There's also a second round for DRCOG funding we're looking into to possibly get another position under that. So we were able to receive that grant and work on it, and we're meeting with them on a regular basis, the whole team is, and including community development too, is working with that effort. And I'm gonna hand this off to Libby now, since those two pictures there have to do with our Xeric Gardens, and she's overseeing that. So I'll let her start on that.
Yeah, thanks, Melody. Another strategy that we have that we've utilized under our grants is supplemental environmental projects funding. We use the acronym SEP because we abbreviate everything. But that is money that's provided by the state for, that's kind of like an eye for an eye sort of funding. And we found out about it through our stormwater coordinator, Maddie Smith, and Public Works, and really put a joint effort together to identify a variety of projects where the SEP funding could really come in handy. And we identified 2 projects. We identified our greenhouse gas inventory that's about 6 years, 6 years beyond when we last inventoried. So we felt like it was really important to provide an update to that, and then to fund our xeric demonstration gardens that we received a $10,000 grant for the design work, but we did not have money to actually fund the gardens themselves. So those 2 gardens, and I'll just kind of elaborate a little bit more about the Colorado Water Conservation Board grant as well, but the 2 gardens are identified for Bison Ridge and for Monaco Park. Both of those are about 1,700 square feet, and they both have different characteristics to the gardens. We did a lot of community engagement last year where we did dot exercises and a lot of fun things with the public at the holiday, tree lighting, and a couple of other events. And we're excited to actually have the funding to put those into place. We also applied for a Colorado Water Conservation Board grant, and were given $47,000 to also fund that piece as well. So another piece that we're working on under some of the strategies is water conservation and food access, and that threads into not only the xeric demonstration gardens and the fact that we've it's been a long slog. I think Mayor Pro Tem remembers back in 2023 how we had identified that we were really wanting these xeric demonstration gardens to demonstrate to our community what people can do in their yards or at their businesses. So we've gone through a request for bid process. We assembled a really nice widespread staff team of expertise, and we have a construction contract that's in progress. Just found out that legal approved it, the Jagger process today, and we'll be getting to the home stretch where we can actually get the construction company out. We've identified the contractor, its Designscapes, and we anticipate the work kind of happening over mid-August to mid-October from start to finish. We're working on educational signage at the moment with some estimates from sign companies. And then another piece that we're providing is a Garden in a Box program. We learned about this a few years ago with Resource Central, which is a nonprofit that really does a lot of wonderful work around the entire state of Colorado. But they put together these nice little boxes. It's not a physical box that you receive with your Garden in a Box, but it's a cardboard box with the materials to plant anywhere from 60 to 100 square feet of xeric plant material. And those range in price from about $100 to $200 now. But the E3 division has really tried to buy some of these box discounts that are $25 off a box, just to help kind of provide a little bit of an incentive to our residents and our businesses. And we started offering this up last summer. We sold 13 boxes last summer season. We sold out of our 20 boxes this spring, and we still have 9 out of the 15 available for the current summer season. So people will buy these, 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time, go and pick up the materials, have everything in their box, everything ready to launch, and put their little xeric conversion piece into play. So we're excited about that. And shameless plug for the 9 extra discounts that we currently have. So if you want to hype up our 9 discounts, I have some brochures that are in Spanish and English, And we also would love to give out some garden flags to people that do some lawn conversions and can give me some photos. Just a shameless plug for a free garden flag that that people can receive if they do some lawn conversion. This certainly saves on irrigation and water conservation, but also on your water bill. And I'm going to segue over to Melody for the oil and gas updates and air quality.
Yeah, we couldn't leave out an oil and gas update, so we have to have that in here. And but before I start on that, I wanted to mention that a supplemental environmental, I always get stuck on that. The SEP that we mentioned earlier, projects, is a fine that an industry in Commerce City would have, and then with that, the state would fine them, and that money would go towards these SEP projects, SEP grants. So that's what we're using, and Stormwater, Public Works got some funds, and then we were asked what projects we had, and that's where we put in for the greenhouse gas inventory and the xeric gardens we already had on our list to do. So that's how it came about. So I wanted to mention that. And here on oil and gas updates and air quality, we wanted to mention under refinery report details, the passage of Colorado House Bill 24-1338 required the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, CDPHE, Air Pollution Control Division, APCD, to hire a refinery expert to examine cumulative impacts and environmental justice at petroleum refineries. The report for Suncor was released May 1st. They had a public meeting here in Commerce City. They invited, it was a select list of people to attend that meeting. They had to go over the refinery report, and it's the links here on the slide. As far as meetings, E3, Adams County, and the Air Pollution Control Division Office of CDPHE began meeting monthly to discuss matters exclusive to air quality in Adams County, and we're doing that on a regular basis, asking questions like Suncor was going to have the Flare 1 reroute, and when was that happening? Was supposed to be earlier this year. Has not happened yet as of June 10th, but we're checking on those things for you. E3 and the City Attorney's Office met monthly on with our local government roundtable to learn about Colorado oil and gas matters and with the local government staff. So we have monthly meetings we attend with other Adams County folks. And monthly oil and gas updates, although we don't give them to you here in council chambers, we do provide those presentations on our E3 webpage. We still are continuing to do that with and providing those Suncor exceedances and other information that were provided by Adams County or any events coming up like the report I mentioned earlier. And this slide here is one I took during Energy and Environment Symposium that's held up in the mountains yearly in the spring. And this panel here is actually, these are representatives from Adams County on this panel that attend that oil and gas meeting I mentioned earlier, and they're at the symposium there. So I wanted to mention what that was for. Next slide is our Sustainable Neighborhoods program we're starting. This is through the Sustainable Neighborhoods Network. It was established to, originally it was established with Lakewood and spread out to other cities. So we're hoping to start this program here in Commerce City. It allows residents to actively engage in creating environmental sustainable and socially connected communities. It encourages neighborhoods to achieve certified sustainable neighborhood status by offering structured guidance, resources, and tracking tools to help implement local sustainability projects. The rollout will be in the fall. It was in Connected. It'll be coming up, a story about it, and we'll be talking about it at the next Speak Up event, recruiting neighbors to join. And so we'll be doing onboarding of neighborhoods in early 2027. And working on this program, it's a grassroots efforts with neighborhoods working together Just for example, I live in Wheat Ridge, so our neighborhood is a sustainable neighborhood. We did a composting workshop recently, had a food truck. It's a way for neighbors to get to know each other and do smaller projects together. We had a tree fall from a storm, and we put in that soil area where the tree was a xeric garden. So it's little projects in your neighborhood is what you would be doing, the State's Sustainable Neighborhoods Network. So we're gonna be rolling that out, and I'd like to introduce Olivia again. She'll be talking next about our current projects.
Yep, just some more miscellaneous projects that we're working on. We have the big focus on urban tree canopy, as evident tonight. Just to highlight again that we did complete that Planet Geo tree canopy assessment and inventory earlier this year. All of those documents are available on the E3 webpage, specifically that assessment, if you want to look further into. And I know Hannah mentioned it earlier, but we also worked with CU Boulder Masters of the Environment program last summer. Part of their capstone project was piloted in Commerce City to assess current and future projected high heat in areas with a low tree canopy. So Commerce City was identified as one of those priority areas across the state that could benefit from an increase in tree canopy. Different from the Planet Geo assessment, this project, although in a small subset of the city, focused on residential neighborhoods. So kind of filled in that gap of, the Planet Geo one didn't have residential insight, but this one did. So it gives us a good baseline of where we can kind of gear some programs towards. And then we also have some interns this summer working on furthering that with programs and policy ideas, and working with the community and getting their insight of what they would actually be interested in utilizing through a program. And then another project that we've been working on is an environmental and climate resilience framework that supplements the Sustainability Action Plan. Of one section in our action plan is adaptation and mitigation. Part of that is building resilience against environmental shocks and stressors that are more long-lasting, as opposed to the Adams County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which focuses more specifically on natural disasters. So this framework does just supplement both of those documents, and that's been completed, and it's on our webpage as well. Gives just like a higher view of project to build resilience against those shocks and stressors. Another one is LEED for Cities. If you're familiar with the U.S. Green Building Council, there's LEED certified buildings that you can undergo. They've recently opened up a cities and communities certification program. So we are one of 17 communities across the country that are in this year's cohort. And that cohort just guides us through the certification process. And it's just a way for us to hold us accountable for our sustainability goals, also give us insight to what we're still working towards. And so that's a project we're undergoing with multiple departments, with specifically community development, and myself. We are leading this project to see where we stand, and hopefully be certified by March of next year. And then one project that's not listed on here, but was a very recent accomplishment as of today, was we launched an indoor air quality sensor loan program in partnership with Anythink Library. So we have 11 air sensors and 11 radon detectors that residents, so long as they have a library card, can check out through the library. And then again, on our webpage, we have kind of results and next steps of what to do based on the findings.
Under next steps, we're working with Community Wellbeing to align our activities with them and on the National League of Cities. That's what we're doing, is with this effort with our presentations together and talking about this. And I'll hand it back to Sarah.
Yeah, so next steps, we'd like to bring forward a resolution to approve the community health and well-being work plan, and then include any appropriate activities from the strategic plan refresh.
All right, thank you, ladies. Appreciate that. Especially from community well-being and with the E3 quarterly report as well. I know on the EPAC, our meetings aren't short, they're long. They probably could go a lot longer. We start at 4:30, we probably could go till 8, because there's just so much information and that you guys have, you bring forward to the group. So I really appreciate the effort that you guys, and the presentation you brought forward, and also for the city stepping up and being part of those accelerators. Those have been in play for a long time, and I appreciate you guys moving forward, actually being involved. This is great information, and they do provide tutorials and everything just to make sure the knowledge they want to bring forward, you can absorb and then push it out to the community. So excellent job. You council members have questions? Councilmember Garriola.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you for all this information. I got to go to the WOW a couple weeks ago or last month, and it's always amazes me what this department does. And I appreciate that, and I think our residents appreciate it. My question is for Strategy 5. I think, and maybe this is a lead question also, so we recently have a workforce advisory committee that we put in place, and we filled all the seats. We have one left. Is there a way that somebody from this department be on that committee, or maybe a liaison? Because it looks like they're doing a lot of the stuff that this committee might be bringing out from the research they're going to be doing, and it's a 2-year commitment. And I don't want to be redundant, or you guys doing it on the city side, and then here's the workforce committee doing the same thing. So how do we collaborate with that? I know we passed the resolution for the workforce.
Yeah, so I would say the workforce, which we are actually having our first meeting tomorrow evening, we have treated that committee similar to other boards and commissions. City employees cannot be on boards and commissions, so I think to directly answer your question, no, a staff member could not be assigned or appointed to a board and commission. With regards to the appointment, if you will, appointment's the wrong term there. With regards to the assignment of an E3 staff member to be the liaison, that's entirely within the city manager's sort of decision-making on who's the appropriate person, who has the appropriate staff time, availability, bandwidth. That's how we've long done it, but I certainly think he's listening, and I would defer to him on what would make sense, and he can certainly have that conversation with the E3 folks.
Okay, because I think it would make sense for somebody from this department to be in those meetings and hear what the folks that we appointed doing very similar work. So just that's my, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dukes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you all for the amazing work. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have these quarterly meetings versus having them within just our council business meeting, because I felt like it wasn't given enough justice to all the work that's happening for across the city for so many years. And so this is a highlight of everything you're doing. I can't thank you enough. I'm excited to see the work. I'm excited for these quarterly meetings. Right now, there's a lot of digestion of all the different actions and steps that are taking place, and it's exciting work. So I see a baseline, a foundation started on top of the work you're doing and the collaboration with different departments, which as a former city employee, I know that's not easy, right? It's coming together with different departments to actually help a holistic approach to helping our residents. And so I thank you for that. I do have a quick question around our WaterWise program and the relationship we have as a city. What was the decision for us to lead that versus work with our water department or the special district, our water special district?
So E3 met with Resource Central a bit ago, maybe even at the onset of our division beginning. We also liaise a lot with SACWest and really appreciate the partnerships that we have with them. We found out that SACWest engages in 2 out of the 4 programs that Resource Central offers, which are a Slow the Flow and WaterWise webinars that are monthly, that are sponsored by various water districts and landscape companies. And what we discovered is that they didn't participate in the Garden in a Box program. So we asked them if that would be acceptable. We kind of, we knew that this was a little foot in the door to advocate for some of our new xeric landscape code amendments. And so, that way our city offers 3 out of 4 of these programmatic elements that are offered through Resource Central.
Okay, that makes sense. I just wanted to, if there's space to ask for partnership or more support from them, I would love for you to let us know, because I think there's that alignment in other cities who have, their own water department. They often lead that effort. And so I know we don't have our own, but if we need to talk with them about even sponsorship or more contribution, please let us know. My other question is around, we just saw a presentation from Epic, and I'm looking at your collaborations and your strategies and grant alignment, and I'm curious if you see a disconnect in what they're moving forward with versus what support or advice they're providing you around your goals and grants and programs.
I'll let Olivia speak to that.
I will say I don't see a disconnect at this point. They have a pretty big interest in also expanding the tree canopy. So they try and take it little by little. As Mayor mentioned tonight, their meetings go quite long, but they do go very in depth with their conversations, with tree canopy being one of their priority focuses right now.
And thank you for that. The other piece that I see is like the electric vehicle action plan or improving housing with energy equity action plan. Is that a space where you see them help and provide advice for that as well, or is that just separate work?
So they've been invited onto both of those projects as kind of external stakeholders from that resident perspective. So they've definitely provided comments and feedback on those plans as well.
Okay, thank you. Again, just thank you all for this work, and I'm glad we moved it to our study sessions, because this is a lot of work that is really going to take a holistic approach to solve. And so I know I'm committed, and the rest of the council is committed to think through this with you in the next couple of months.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both of your divisions. It's so exciting to see all that you are accomplishing. It's probably one of the best things I've ever been part of as a city council person, is to have played a teensy-weensy small role in the fact that you exist. So I'm very happy that Wellbeing and E3 is operating so well. I was noticing also on the health and well-being side of it, and 2 things that Councilor Duke said that I can address. One of them is that I have talked to South Adams County Water and Sanitation District, otherwise known occasionally as SACWISD, although I'm not sure Abel loves that name. But I have talked to them about that, and he told me that it would depend on how their formation documents addressed things like contributing to their customers in some financial way, as they do in some other water districts, such as helping you tear out your lawn or doing things like that, or even the Resource Central issues. So it is worth going back and doing again, since Councilmember Dukes and the mayor are both on the Water Commission meeting, part of the Water Commission now, which I served on for 5 years. Also, the air quality tester is really important when it comes to well-being, because it was noted that there are health inequities for our residents in Commerce City. And I didn't see, as part of the strategies, something to address those health inequities. But the air quality tester can help with that, right? Because it said it's not just PM 2.5 or PM 10.5. It is also toxins, it's also the volatile stuff that you can't see, right? It's measuring things, and I think it's important for people to check that out of the library, put it in their house, and see what it is that's coming into their homes. I hope one day there is a public health research project that investigates our community, because if everybody is not having issues because of any of the industrial businesses in the area, that would be fabulous. If they are having issues, then we need to know what those are so we can address those too. Lack of information is the biggest barrier to helping our residents. So thank you all for all you do. I really appreciate your work.
Any other council members have questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. It was worth you guys coming in.
I have another question, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Dukes.
Thank you, Mayor. So looking at the food insecurity, increased free foods, can you talk more about the partnerships there? And also, when we think about, you mentioned North and South, are we also looking at East and West? Because I think about neighborhoods like Dunes and also Legato, like just not the Reunion and Derby area. Are we thinking about all the areas, or can you talk about what you mean by East and West when we think about things like food access?
It's definitely part of consideration, not only North versus South. That was just a general summary of when we looked at the data of the disparities. We do work with Bell Creek a lot and their family center, so it doesn't necessarily include East and West as well. So as we move forward, hopefully with this work, we will include all regions.
Okay, and in thinking about access, are you partnering? I see Adams County, but I also know with residents and when the schools are out in the summer, there's always a challenge having access to quality meals. Are you guys thinking about that as well?
Yes, that's one of our priority areas, is have a better relationship, especially during the summer, for kiddos don't get lunch and breakfast. So that is one focus area we want to really hone in on. Partnerships with churches. We hope to increase the well in other areas of the city, so more conversations to come, but county partnerships, faith-based partnerships, and local nonprofits as well.
Okay, and I would just provide a recommendation. When I was a deputy director in a city and county, I oversaw their Tasty Meals program, and they provide, I don't know if you know, they provide the largest meal resources to the city, second to the school district. And this might be a good resource if you need. City Manager Rogers, reach out and I can connect you with some of those contacts over there in the Office of Children's Affairs.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I did appreciate the monthly oil and gas updates, because now we're having a conversation around potentially fracking in outside of our city borders. And so, you know, that conversation should be happening monthly, not quarterly, because it's a long time in between. So I would say if there any activity that involves around oil and gas, that should be brought forward. And I'll look towards our city manager to keep us updated in that arena, if that's possible.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you just rephrase that for me? Because obviously I know there was a motion to dovetail the discussion around oil and gas when we're having these presentations to the council. So I just need a finer point for where, what level of updates are you looking for from me as the city manager?
If there's any activity that it's going to happen, like a permit pulled, not in the city, of course, but in the county, because we don't have a designee. We used to have a designee in the city of Commerce City. I know Adams County does, but we had one a while back but we don't. Just to inform residents what's happening and not waiting on the quarterly report in case there's activity between now and just say there happened August or September.
Yeah, I think this is I appreciate the question because I think this is great. We do have a liaison with ECMC, which is Melody. So we do get those notifications. I go back to, not everything that happens outside the city's boundaries is city's business. And when there is consideration for surface implications to the city, then obviously we receive notifications because of proximity or happening within. As we all know, when it comes to subsurface conditions, we have very limited to no authority with response to that, which is obviously handled by the state. So I go back to, I am somewhat hesitant to send my staff on chasing any fracking as it may pertain that's outside of our boundaries or has limited interaction with the potential borders that we have. So unless we're getting a notification from the county as their established process because it's within a 1 mile buffer of our city, that's a very different conversation about potential noise, odor, potential light glare that we may then want as a city to provide comments. But outside of those notifications and the notifications that we would then respectfully get from the ECMC, I think that's a different process of just then providing the this quarterly update about being able to come to you all and saying, council, what position do you want the city to take on this application? That's different than just a routine discussion around what we're trying to advance on air quality, the social determinants of air quality as it pertains not to just oil and gas, but the broader collection of volatile organic compounds or other conditions. So I think there's a way of being able to update you responsibly on the things that could impact us, but the things that may not. Like I said, I'm going to keep my team focused on the duty and the work that they have before them that is within, like I said, a potential intersection with the city boundary.
Okay, I appreciate that. And thanks again.
Oh,
Appreciate
Mayor,
it.
one point on that. I would welcome, Mayor, if you wanted to put together a motion through the legislative process to have the city manager report oil and gas outside of Commerce City.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion, Councilmember Dukes. Thanks again. Appreciate you guys. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Be back at 8:31, please.